All right, welcome back, everyone. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
I stepped through my own front door carrying a single duffel bag and a paper plate of lukewarm, welcome home lasagna, and the first thing I noticed was that my coat rack was gone. Not broken, not moved, gone. In its place stood a gold balloon arch that read, "Welcome back, Vanessa," with glitter falling onto my hardwood floor like cheap confetti at a divorce party. My parents clapped as if I'd just won a game show instead of returned from an 18-month deployment. "Look who's home," my mother Diane said, rushing toward me with a smile so wide it felt rehearsed. My father Richard stood beside her holding a phone up to record, because apparently my arrival was content now. Behind them, the living room was full. Aunts, uncles, neighbors I barely knew, and people I definitely did not invite into the house I paid for with my own military salary. Then I saw her, Megan. My younger sister floated out from the kitchen, wearing a silk cream-colored dress that hugged a round belly I had never seen before today. She moved like she was walking on a runway, one hand resting delicately under her bump, the other holding a glass of sparkling water that suspiciously smelled like champagne. "Surprise," she said. I blinked once, then again, because the last time I'd seen Megan in person, she was crying in a coffee shop about being $40,000 in credit card debt and dating a man who thought investment strategy meant sports betting. And now she was pregnant, with twins, engaged, radiant, in my living room. My mother grabbed my shoulders. "Megan has wonderful news. Isn't it perfect timing, family destiny, all of it?" People started clapping again. Someone whistled. Someone handed Megan a tiny stuffed elephant like we were already in a baby shower. I smiled, because soldiers are trained to keep their faces neutral when walking into chaos. "Congratulations," I said. "That's big news." Megan's eyes glimmered. "Ethan is in the den. He wanted to meet you." From the other room, a tall man in a crisp blue blazer waved. He looked like he came pre-installed with a credit score above 800. So far, I was processing this well. Then my mother guided me toward the dining table where a stack of papers sat neatly in front of a pen. "Sweetheart," she said, voice dropping into that tone parents use when they're about to sell your organs on the black market. "We need to talk about something important." I glanced at the papers. Real estate forms, legal headings, my name printed in bold. My father cleared his throat. Now that Megan is starting a family, she needs stability. And this house, well, it's perfect for her. I stared at him. "This is my house." Richard nodded like I'd made a minor observation about the weather. "Exactly, and you're a military officer. You're used to hardship. You'll be deployed again. You don't need a big house sitting empty." Megan placed a hand on her belly and sighed dramatically. "Think of the babies, Vanessa." The room quieted. Every guest suddenly interested in my reaction like this was live television. I looked around at the people standing on my floors, leaning on my counters, drinking from glasses I bought. I had spent years saving, skipping vacations, buying used furniture, fixing leaky pipes myself. I bought this place at 26 while Megan was still deciding which yoga studio matched her energy. I set my duffel bag down slowly. "You're asking me to give my house away," I said. My mother pushed the papers closer. "Not give, transfer. It's a family decision." I stared at her. A family decision made while I was overseas. My father gave a small chuckle. "Don't be dramatic. That word, dramatic. The same word they used when I worked 3 jobs in high school because Megan needed self-discovery trips. The same word when I joined the army to pay for my own college, while Megan got tuition checks signed with my parents' smiling faces." Megan stepped closer, lowering her voice, just enough to feel personal. "You don't have kids. You don't even have a boyfriend. What do you need a big house for, to polish your medals?" A few guests laughed, not loudly, just enough. I breathed in through my nose, out through my mouth. "Where would I live?" I asked. My mother brightened. "We found a lovely extended stay apartment near your base. Very efficient. Efficient, like a storage unit with plumbing." My gaze dropped to the front porch through the glass door. That's when I saw it. Black trash bags, lined neatly outside, my framed photos, my blankets, my kitchen mixer, even my running shoes. Packed, labeled, ready, not a plan, not a suggestion, already done. The room tilted slightly, but my feet stayed planted. Military training is great for many things. Not punching family members in public is one of them. I looked at Megan. You packed my things. She smiled. Mom said it would help you transition faster. I let out a short laugh. Transition, like I'm retiring from existence. Another beat of silence. Then my father tapped the papers. Sign Vanessa, do the right thing. I looked at the pen, the forms, the belly, the crowd. Then I looked at the house, my house, and I realized something simple. They weren't asking. They had already decided. So I straightened my shoulders, picked up the pen, and paused long enough for everyone to lean forward waiting. Before I tell you what I did next, let me ask you something. Have you ever worked your way up from nothing built something with your own hands, and then had the people who should love you most look at it and say, "That's ours now," like your effort was just a free trial they never intended to pay for? I uncapped the pen. I set the pen back down without signing, picked up my duffel bag, and walked out through my front door while my family stood frozen behind me like background actors who just realized the scene wasn't going as scripted. No one stopped me. No one called my name. The gold balloon arch swayed in the doorway as I stepped past the trash bags, holding my life like it was cheering for the wrong team. I loaded what I could into my car. Not everything fit. I left my couch, my bookshelves, and a blender I never really liked anyway. Then I drove to the extended stay apartment my mother had already booked for me because, of course, she had. The room smelled like industrial lemon cleaner and broken dreams. One bed, one dresser, a microwave that sounded like a helicopter trying to take off. I placed my duffel bag on the floor and stood there for a moment, still wearing my boots, still feeling like I'd just walked out of a mission that ended in friendly fire. I showered. I ate a protein bar. I sat on the bed and stared at the beige wall, and something inside me quietly shifted. Not sadness, not anger. Assessment. That night sleep didn't come. Instead, old memories did. Me at 16 working a double shift at a diner carrying plates heavier than my backpack, while Megan was in Costa Rica finding herself. Me counting tips to buy my own textbooks while my parents were wiring money for Megan's emergency shopping situation. Me signing enlistment papers at 18, hearing my mother say, "At least one of my daughters will have discipline," like it was both a compliment and a sentence. I didn't resent hard work. I resented the pattern. I always paid. Megan always received. By morning, the pattern wasn't just emotional anymore. It was strategic. I opened my laptop and logged into my banking apps. Everything looked normal. Then I checked my military benefits account. There it was, a new authorized representative, my father's name. I stared at the screen. Refreshed. Same result. I pulled up my email. A confirmation message from a legal service. Subject line, power of attorney, successfully filed. I hadn't filed anything. I clicked the document. My signature was there, except it wasn't mine. Close, similar, but wrong in the tiny ways that matter when you've signed your name on official military paperwork 1,000 times. They hadn't just tried to take my house. They were trying to take me out of my own life. A power of attorney doesn't just let someone handle a few errands. It lets them move your money, sell your property, make legal decisions in your name. With the wrong doctor's note, it could even support a claim that I wasn't mentally fit to manage my own affairs, which explained the sudden urgency, the packing, the apartment, the push to make me look like the unstable one walking away from family. I sat very still on the bed. Then I smiled, because if there was one thing the Army had taught me, it was this. When someone tries to control the battlefield, you study their structure and find the weak points. I drove back to the base legal office that afternoon. A captain behind a desk reviewed the documents, then looked up at me slowly. "You did not sign this," he said. "No, sir. This is fraud." "Yes, sir." He nodded once, the way officers do when a situation just became official. "We'll open a case file. In the meantime, do not confront them. Let them think their plan is working." I walked out of the office with a folder in my hand and a new clarity in my chest, so I did exactly that. I stopped calling. I didn't text. I let my parents assume I had accepted my new life as the obedient daughter who knew her place. I let Megan believe she was now queen of my castle, ruler of my kitchen, guardian of my walk-in closet. I even sent one short message. "Hey," settled into the apartment. "Hope everything is going smoothly with the house." "Congrats again," Megan replied instantly. "Thanks, it's perfect. You should come by sometime." I didn't answer. Instead, I drove past my old street that evening, just once, slow, casual, like a neighbor out for a jog. Lights were on, Music was playing. My porch plants were already dead. Someone had rearranged the living room furniture, and I could see a new white rug where my dark one used to be. They were nesting. Good. Because people who feel safe make mistakes. Back in my apartment, I opened the control app for my home security system, the one I had installed 2 years ago, the one my parents never bothered to learn how to use, the one they assumed was just smoke detection and door sensors. Every camera was online, every angle clear. I watched Megan walk into my kitchen, open my fridge, and pour herself a glass of wine. Then she pulled a second glass, and a third, pregnant with twins supposedly. She laughed at something on her phone and took a long drink. I watched without blinking. Then she walked to the hallway mirror, lifted her dress slightly, and adjusted something under the fabric around her stomach. Her reflection moved in ways real pregnancy doesn't. She stepped back, inspected herself, and smirked. "Oh, Vanessa," she said to her own reflection, "you really were the easiest one to get rid of." I paused the video, saved the clip, backed it up twice. I leaned back on the bed in my small temporary room and let out a slow breath. They thought I had walked away. They thought I had surrendered, but I wasn't gone. I was just repositioning. I woke up before my alarm sat on the edge of the bed and opened the camera feed again. Megan was in my kitchen barefoot wearing one of my old oversized t-shirts. She stretched, yawned, and walked without the careful protective movements pregnant women naturally have. No guarding the belly, no slow shifting of weight. Just normal, loose, careless motion. I'd spent years learning how to evaluate structures under stress. Bridges, supply chains, field installations. You study where tension builds, where weight shifts, where collapse will start. Families weren't that different. You just had to stop thinking emotionally and start thinking mechanically. So I created a routine. Every morning before work, I checked the feeds. Every night before sleep, I checked again. Not obsessively, methodically, like monitoring a perimeter. Megan's behavior followed patterns. She drank wine at dinner, real wine. Not grape juice in a fancy glass. She ordered sushi deliveries with raw fish. She wore tight dresses that compressed her stomach flat when she thought no one was watching. Then before guests arrived, she disappeared into the bedroom and emerged with a rounder silhouette and slower steps. My parents hovered around her like attendants in a royal court. They brought her tea. They adjusted pillows behind her back. They spoke about the babies in hushed, reverent tones. None of them noticed the small inconsistencies, because they weren't trained to. I was. One afternoon, I took a personal day and drove to a cafe across the street from the house. I sat by the window with a laptop open, pretending to work on logistics reports. At noon, Megan walked out the front door in workout leggings and a sports bra. No belly. She jogged down the sidewalk at a steady pace. Pregnant with twins, supposedly in her 3rd trimester, jogging without support gear, without discomfort, without any visible bump. I recorded it on my phone. She returned 40 minutes later, went inside. 10 minutes after that, she stepped back out wearing a loose maternity dress, and the belly was back. I saved that video too. By the end of the week, I had a folder full of small cracks, not enough yet to break the structure, but enough to prove it was hollow. I needed more, something undeniable. So I leaned into the role they'd written for me. I sent my mother a text. "Apartment is fine. I'm adjusting. Let me know if you need anything." She responded with a heart emoji and a prayer hands emoji because nothing says love like outsourced guilt. I sent Megan a message too. "Hey, sorry I left so suddenly. Just needed space. Hope the pregnancy is going smoothly," she replied 5 seconds later. "All good. You know how family comes first." I stared at that line for a moment and laughed quietly in my car. Family comes first, except when it's you. That weekend I showed up at the house unannounced, not in uniform, just jeans, plain shirt, neutral expression. My mother opened the door like she'd been waiting behind it. "Vanessa, you're here, come in, come in." Inside the house smelled like roasted chicken and expensive perfume. My old living room furniture had been rearranged. A large floral couch now sat where my recliner used to be. A pastel baby blanket was draped over it like a flag claiming territory. Megan waddled in from the kitchen, hand under her belly, playing the role perfectly now that an audience existed. "Look who decided to visit," she said. I smiled. Thought I'd check in, see how everyone's doing. My father glanced at me briefly, then went back to cutting meat like nothing unusual had ever happened. We sat at the table. My mother served food. Megan talked nonstop about baby names, nursery colors, how Ethan's parents were so excited to finally be grandparents. I listened, asked questions, played the part of the supportive sister who had accepted her reduced place in the family hierarchy. Halfway through dinner, Megan stood up suddenly. "Bathroom," she said, patting her belly. "Babies are sitting on my bladder again." She left her phone on the table, unlocked. She'd never been careful, not once in her life. I picked up the phone calmly and walked to the hallway where the security system panel sat inside a cabinet. I knew the passcode. I'd installed it. I turned off the hallway camera, then I placed her phone face down on the counter and turned on the bedroom camera remotely from my own device. Megan returned a few minutes later. Dinner continued. Wine flowed. My mother poured Megan a glass without hesitation. Half an hour later, Megan excused herself again, complaining about back pain this time. She walked to the bedroom. I waited. 1 minute, 2. Then I opened the live feed. Megan stood in front of the mirror. She lifted her dress, unfastened a Velcro strap, pulled a rounded foam prosthetic away from her body and dropped it on the bed. Her stomach was flat. Completely flat. She rolled her shoulders, stretched like someone finally taking off tight shoes after a long day. "God, I hate this thing," she muttered to herself. She picked up the fake belly again, repositioned it, tightened the strap, and smoothed the dress back down. Then she leaned closer to the mirror, tilted her head, and smiled. "They bought it," she said. "Every single one of them." She laughed, a sharp, satisfied sound. "Especially Vanessa. Miss Army Hero walked right out like a good little soldier. She'll sign whatever we put in front of her soon enough. And once the house is sold, I'm free." She paused, admiring herself. "No kids, no work, no debt. Perfect life. I recorded every second." The door opened. My mother stepped in, asking if she was okay. Megan instantly switched posture, voice soft, hand cradling her belly again. I turned off the feed. Back at the table, I sat down with my plate and continued eating as if nothing had happened. My father asked about my work. I answered casually. My mother asked if the apartment was comfortable. I said it was fine. Megan smiled at me across the table with a sweetness that would have fooled anyone without video proof, saved to 3 separate drives. By the time dessert was served, I had what I needed. Not emotion, not suspicion, evidence, clean, clear, undeniable. I stood up to leave. My mother hugged me tightly. My father patted my shoulder like I was a colleague. Megan kissed my cheek. "Come again soon," she said. I smiled back. "Oh, I will," and I meant it. I drove back to my apartment with both hands steady on the wheel and a folder of video files quietly syncing to a secure cloud. The night air felt cold through the cracked window, but my mind was clear for the first time since I'd walked out of that front door. Evidence of a fake pregnancy was satisfying. But it wasn't enough. Because Megan didn't fake a pregnancy just to play house. She did it for money, and money always leaves a trail. I parked, walked upstairs, unlocked my door, and dialed a number I hadn't used in 2 years. Marcus picked up on the second ring. "Staff Sergeant Cole," he said. "Captain Hayes," I replied. He paused. "You don't call unless something's wrong. Something's very wrong." 30 minutes later, Marcus sat at the tiny round table in my apartment, balancing his laptop between 2 cups of bad instant coffee. He was a former military investigator turned private security consultant. Short hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of calm that made people confess just to fill silence. I handed him a flash drive. He watched the footage without a word. Megan jogging with no belly, removing the prosthetic, drinking wine, laughing at her reflection. When the last clip ended, Marcus leaned back. "Yeah," he said. "That's fraud. Medical fraud," I said. "Financial fraud. An identity fraud with the power of attorney. And this house," he added. "They can't sell it yet, right? Not without my signature." "Then the pregnancy is leverage," he said. "They're trying to make you look heartless if you resist." "Exactly." Marcus opened a new folder on his laptop. "Let's follow the money." He started with insurance records. Prenatal care usually leaves digital footprints. Doctor visits, lab work, ultrasound billing codes. 10 minutes later, he frowned. "Your sister has no legitimate OBGYN records," he said. "Maybe she's paying cash." He shook his head. "Even cash clinics log patient IDs. There's nothing." He typed faster fingers, moving like they'd been trained for war too. Then he whistled once. "There is something," he said. "A small private clinic across town. 1 ultrasound charge. Paid in full, cash. No insurance submission." I leaned closer. "Who performed it?" Marcus clicked again. "A nurse practitioner. License number here. No supervising physician attached." I sat back. That's not standard. Not even close, he said. He cross-referenced the clinic address, then the nurse's name, then her known associates. After another 10 minutes, Marcus turned the laptop toward me. A transaction history, multiple payments, large amounts, routed through a family trust account. My family's trust account. Your parents pulled money from the trust, Marcus said, transferred to an intermediary account. That account paid the nurse. I stared at the screen. $50,000, I said quietly. Marcus nodded. To buy fake medical documentation. I exhaled slowly through my nose. So they're all in on it. Yes, Marcus said. But there's more. He clicked again and pulled up another list of transactions tied to Megan's personal accounts. Dozens of outgoing transfers, crypto exchanges, high-risk investment platforms, loan apps with obscene interest rates. Marcus pointed at the negative balance. She's deep in debt, he said. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe more if she's hiding wallets. I didn't feel shocked. Only confirmed. Which means Marcus continued, the house isn't for the babies. It's collateral. She wants to sell it. Fast. And disappear, I said. Marcus nodded. Exactly. He closed the laptop. Now, he said, here's the dangerous part. If they've already filed a fraudulent power of attorney, the next step is to challenge your mental fitness. They'll say you're unstable, overworked, emotionally compromised by deployment. It's a common tactic in financial abuse cases. I laughed once without humor. So their plan was never just to take my house. Marcus didn't smile. No. Their plan was to take you out of the equation completely. I stood up and walked to the small window overlooking the parking lot. My reflection in the glass looked calm, controlled, focused. This isn't a family problem anymore, I said. It's a legal and criminal one. Marcus stood beside me. Then we treat it that way, he said. Over the next week, we worked quietly. Marcus compiled every financial record, every transaction, every false medical entry, every clip from the security system, every communication message Megan sent bragging about the pregnancy. I filed an official fraud report through military legal channels. That ensured jurisdiction, that ensured consequences, that ensured no one could bury this with a family apology. Meanwhile, I continued playing the obedient daughter. I texted my mother. I answered politely when she called. I congratulated Megan on doctor updates. I said I was proud of her. And each time I hung up, Marcus added another timestamp to the evidence log. One afternoon, Megan sent me a message. We're thinking of doing a big gender reveal party. Ethan wants it fancy, at the house. You should come. Family moment. I stared at the message. A public event. Dozens of witnesses. A stage they were building themselves. I typed back. I wouldn't miss it. Marcus looked over my shoulder. They're getting confident, he said. Good, I replied. People who feel safe talk too much. He closed his laptop. Then we set the trap. I smiled. Exactly. I walked into the restaurant 10 minutes late on purpose. Not dramatic late, just late enough to make them wonder if I'd changed my mind. Late enough to give them time to sit, order drinks, and start feeling in control of the situation. The place was upscale, but not outrageous. White tablecloths, low lighting, waiters who said excellent choice no matter what you ordered. Megan had picked it, of course. She always chose settings that made her feel like she'd already won. My parents were seated on one side of the table. Megan sat at the head, belly forward, hand resting on it like a queen guarding the crown jewels. Ethan sat beside her, smiling politely, the only person in the room who didn't know he was a supporting character in a crime. When they saw me, all four faces lit up in practiced relief. There she is, my mother said. We were worried you wouldn't come. I slid into the chair opposite Megan. I said I'd be here, I replied. I keep my word. My father lifted his glass. To family, he said. We all raised our glasses. I touched mine to theirs, took a small sip and set it down. No warmth, no reconciliation, just positioning. Dinner started with small talk. My job, Megan's cravings, Ethan's parents, my mother's new Pilates class, my father's latest golf score. It was like watching a sitcom where every character pretended the pilot episode hadn't ended with theft and betrayal. Halfway through the main course, my mother dabbed her lips with a napkin and leaned forward. So she said we wanted to discuss a few final details. My father reached into a leather folder and pulled out a stack of papers. Again, different restaurant, same script. He slid them toward me. These are simple acknowledgments, he said. Just confirming that you won't contest the house transfer or any family trust decisions. With the babies coming, we need to protect Megan's stability. Megan smiled softly like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth or under her fake belly. I looked down at the documents. Heavy legal language, signature lines waiting for me like open traps. I didn't touch the pen. Instead, I reached into my bag and placed my own folder on the table. Thick, official-looking, red stamp on the front. The kind that makes people sit up straighter without reading a word. "What's that?" my father asked. I smiled. "My paperwork." My mother's eyes brightened. "Oh, sweetheart, did you finally realize we're just trying to help you? Is this you agreeing to the plan?" I opened the folder slowly. Inside were blank sheets. No real documents. Just clean paper clipped neatly together. Megan leaned forward, trying to see the content. "Looks important," she said. "It is," I replied. "Very important." Then I did something simple. I let my phone vibrate on the table. A new text message appeared on the screen facing them. "Congratulations on your patent bonus. $17 million will be released to your account upon final clearance." Silence. My mother gasped. My father's eyes widened. Ethan blinked. Once, twice. Megan froze. I picked up the phone casually and looked at the message. "Wow," I said. "They finally approved it." My father cleared his throat. "Approved." "What?" I leaned back in my chair. "A defense logistics patent I filed last year. Supply chain encryption. It just cleared final review." I let that sit. $17 million. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Vanessa, that's incredible." My father stared at me with a new light in his eyes. Not pride. Calculation. Ethan smiled politely. "That's impressive. Congratulations." Megan said nothing. She just watched me, carefully, like a gambler realizing the other player had more chips than expected. I closed my folder and slid it slightly toward myself. "So I said before I sign anything, I figured we should talk about family resources. Because if I'm about to receive that kind of money, I want to make sure it's managed properly." My father leaned forward immediately. "Of course," he said. "Family decisions. We're here for you." My mother nodded. "We can help protect it. Guide you." Megan placed both hands on her belly and tilted her head. "And think of the babies," she said softly. "They'll need a safe future too." There it was. The hook. I let a small smile form. "You're right," I said. "Family should share responsibility." Megan's voice grew sweeter. "Exactly, and since you don't plan on having children, maybe we could—" She stopped herself just short of finishing the sentence. But everyone at the table knew what came next. Share the money, give it to her, secure her future, complete the transfer. My father slid the papers closer again. So he said, tapping the signature line, "We just need your cooperation and everything will be settled nicely." I looked at the pen, then at their faces. My mother glowing with anticipation. My father already spending money that wasn't his. Megan vibrating with barely contained greed behind her gentle pregnant act. Ethan confused but silent. I picked up the pen and turned it slowly between my fingers. No rush, no pressure, just letting the moment stretch long enough for them to believe they'd won. Then I set the pen down again. "I agree," I said. "Everything should be settled nicely." Megan exhaled relief flickering in her eyes. My father smiled broadly. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. And right then I knew the trap was set. They just hadn't heard it click yet. I stepped out of my car and adjusted the collar of my dress uniform, the dark blue fabric sitting sharp against my shoulders. Medals, ribbons, polished shoes, the full presentation. If they wanted a show, I could give them one. Music thumped through the walls of my house before I even reached the front door. Valets were parking cars along the curb. Pink and blue balloons climbed the porch rails. A giant banner stretched across my balcony. Baby reveal of the century subtle was never Megan's thing. I walked past the crowd gathering outside. Women in designer dresses, men in pressed jackets, phones already raised ready to record whatever spectacle Megan had planned. No one paid attention to me at first. I was just another guest arriving late. Until someone noticed the uniform. Heads turned, whispers started. A few people straightened their posture instinctively. Military uniforms have that effect. They don't need introductions. I walked through the front door. My front door. Inside the house looked like a wedding, a baby shower, and a social media convention had collided and lost control. Glitter on the floor. Champagne towers. A dessert table shaped like a crib. A professional photographer directing people like a movie set. My mother spotted me first. Vanessa, she called, rushing over. You made it. She hugged me quickly, but her hands lingered on my sleeves, smoothing imaginary wrinkles. Appearances mattered, even now. My father followed, smile wide and proud, as if the uniform suddenly made me valuable again. You look impressive, he said. I nodded once. Thank you. Megan appeared at the top of the staircase. She paused there deliberately, letting the crowd see her. White silk gown, hair done, makeup perfect, hand under her belly. A walking fairy tale financed by fraud. Everyone, she called out, thank you for coming to celebrate my growing family. Applause filled the room. I stayed still near the entrance. Megan descended the stairs slowly, carefully controlling each step. She reached the floor and moved through the guests, accepting compliments, posing for photos, laughing lightly, with one hand always on her stomach like a prop that needed reminding to stay in place. Ethan stood beside her, smiling like a man who believed he'd won the lottery without realizing the ticket was counterfeit. When Megan finally reached me, her smile tightened. You came, she said quietly. I said I would, I replied. She looked me up and down. You wore the uniform. I did. Trying to steal my spotlight, I smiled slightly. You have plenty of spotlight. Her eyes flickered, but she leaned in and hugged me anyway. For the cameras. Family, she whispered. Family, I whispered back. My mother clapped her hands. All right, everyone. We're about to reveal the gender. Guests gathered around the center of the living room, where a massive cake waited on a decorated table. Pink and blue lights crisscrossed the ceiling. Phones were raised again. Influencers had tripods. Megan stood proudly beside the cake, holding a large silver knife. Ethan put his arm around her. My parents stood behind them like proud monarchs, witnessing a coronation. I stayed near the edge of the crowd. Then I stepped forward. The room quieted just a little. Uniforms do that too. Before the reveal, I said, voice steady and clear, I brought something special for the parents-to-be. Megan blinked. Oh, I lifted a small envelope. A gift, I said. Something symbolic. Megan's greed pushed aside caution instantly. Oh my God, Vanessa, that's so sweet, she said loudly for the audience. Everyone look, my sister brought a gift. Phones turned toward us. Perfect. Megan took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a printed copy of a legal notice. Official seals, bold text. The kind of paper that kills smiles on contact. She skimmed the first line. Her face changed. What is this? She hissed under her breath. I leaned in just enough. It's a formal notice of investigation, I said quietly. Fraud, financial exploitation, identity falsification. Megan's fingers tightened around the paper. My mother stepped closer, confused. Vanessa, what are you doing? I raised my voice slightly, still calm. I invited someone else too, I said. A man stepped in through the front door behind me. Gray suit, leather briefcase, sharp eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, this is attorney Samuel Grant representing me in an ongoing case concerning fraudulent property seizure and falsified medical records. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ethan's arms slowly loosened from around Megan. My father's smile disappeared. My mother's face drained of color. Megan forced a laugh. Vanessa, this isn't funny. You're ruining my event. Attorney Grant stepped forward. Ms. Megan Hayes, he said, voice firm. You are formally notified that evidence has been submitted regarding falsified prenatal documentation, fraudulent financial transfers, and attempted illegal sale of protected property. Protected property, that phrase landed heavy. My father swallowed hard. Protected, I stepped closer. This house, I said, was registered as protected military residence property when I deployed overseas. Any attempt to transfer or sell it without my consent is a federal offense. My mother's wine glass trembled in her hand. Guests stepped back slowly, sensing they'd walked into something far beyond a baby party. Megan's voice rose. You're lying. You're jealous. You've always been jealous. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Am I asked. Because the evidence says otherwise. Megan's eyes darted around the room. Phones were still recording, but no one was cheering anymore. No one was clapping. No one was smiling. Only watching. Ethan stepped away from her completely. What evidence? He asked. Megan turned toward him, panicked. Don't listen to her. She's trying to destroy us. Attorney Grant opened his briefcase. We have video footage, he said. Financial records. Medical transaction trails. Security logs. Megan's breathing sped up. My father reached for her arm. Megan, tell me this isn't true. She jerked away. My mother whispered, the babies. Megan clutched her belly protectively, as if shielding it from exposure. Then she screamed, "You're all against me!" The sound cracked through the silent room. Guests backed away further. The photographer lowered his camera. Influencers stopped filming. Champagne flutes sat untouched on silver trays. I looked at my sister. Not with anger, not with sadness, with certainty. And in that moment, the glitter, the balloons, the silk dress, the curated perfection around her, all looked exactly like what they were. A stage built on a lie. And the audience had finally stopped applauding. I stepped forward once more, and the crowd parted without me asking. It reminded me of walking through base inspections when presence alone signaled that something serious was happening. I took the microphone from the stunned event host, who handed it over like it was a live grenade. My voice carried easily across the room. "I'm not here to argue about feelings," I said. "I'm here to state facts." Phones were still raised, but no one spoke. Even the music had stopped. Someone somewhere had decided this wasn't a party anymore. Attorney Grant stood beside me, opening a folder thick enough to double as a weapon. I clicked a small remote in my hand. The television above the fireplace turned on. The first video played. Megan in my kitchen, barefoot, drinking wine. Time-stamped. Clear, undeniable. Murmurs moved through the crowd. Next video. Megan jogging outside with no pregnancy bump. Smooth, steady stride. No discomfort. Next, bedroom footage. Megan removing the prosthetic belly, flat stomach, laughing at her reflection. Someone gasped loudly. Another person covered their mouth. I kept my eyes on my parents. My mother's face collapsed inward like a structure losing support. My father's jaw tightened as if clenching hard enough could change reality. I switched the screen again. Financial records, transactions, highlighted amounts. $50,000 transferred from the family trust, paid to a clinic, paid to a nurse with no supervising physician, paid to buy fake ultrasound results. Attorney Grant's voice cut through the silence. These documents have been verified by forensic accountants. These funds were withdrawn without proper authorization and used to purchase fraudulent medical documentation. I watched Megan. She was shaking now. Not dramatically, not theatrically, real tremors, real fear. Ethan stepped forward slowly, eyes locked on the screen. "You told me there were doctor visits," he said. "You showed me pictures." Megan grabbed his arm. "I can explain." He pulled away. My father cleared his throat, voice hoarse. "Vanessa, sweetheart, we didn't know it was this serious." I looked at him. "You filed a power of attorney in my name while I was deployed." My mother whispered, "We were trying to protect you." I didn't raise my voice. "By taking control of my income, my property, and my legal rights." My father looked at the floor. Attorney Grant stepped forward again. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," he said. "Fraudulent power of attorney filings and attempts to liquidate protected military property constitute federal offenses." The words "federal offenses" landed harder than any shout could. At the front door, 2 men in dark jackets stepped inside. Not rushing, not aggressive, just present, badges visible, professional, federal agents. One of them nodded to Attorney Grant. My mother's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the marble floor. No one moved to clean it. Megan's breathing spiraled faster. She grabbed her belly again, clutching it like a shield. "This is harassment," she shouted. "I'm pregnant. You can't do this to me." I stepped closer. "Then prove it," I said. Her eyes widened. Attorney Grant opened another folder. "I requested an emergency court-authorized medical verification for the safety of the alleged unborn children," he said. "A certified obstetric specialist is present on site." The crowd parted again. A woman in medical scrubs walked in carrying a compact mobile ultrasound unit. Professional, calm, neutral. Megan shook her head violently. No, you can't do this here." The doctor's voice was steady. "This is a non-invasive procedure. If there are viable fetuses, this protects their legal rights. If there are none, it protects the court from continued deception." My mother whispered, "Megan, just let her check." My father didn't speak. He couldn't. Ethan's face had gone pale. He looked like a man watching his future evaporate in real time. Megan backed away. The federal agent stepped slightly closer. Not touching, just closing space. Megan's voice broke. "I'm not some criminal," I spoke quietly. "You made yourself one." The doctor rolled the ultrasound machine forward. Guests pressed against the walls now. No phones raised, no whispers, just breathing and disbelief. Megan's hands shook as she lifted the hem of her dress slightly. The fake belly was still strapped underneath. The doctor applied gel to the probe. Cold, clinical, ordinary. She placed it against the surface of Megan's belly. The screen lit up. Static waves, blank space, no heartbeat, no movement, no life. The room went silent in a way that swallowed sound. The doctor adjusted angles, increased sensitivity, checked again, nothing. Megan stared at the screen. My mother covered her mouth with both hands. My father's shoulders slumped as if someone had cut his strings. Ethan stepped back another full pace away from Megan. The doctor turned off the device. "There is no pregnancy," she said. "No theatrics, no accusation, just truth." The words hung in the air, heavier than the chandelier above us. Megan ripped the Velcro strap from under her dress and threw the prosthetic belly onto the floor. It landed with a dull, synthetic thud, a perfect symbol of everything. She screamed then, raw, animal, cornered. This was supposed to work. I was supposed to get free. One of the federal agents stepped forward. "Ms. Megan Hayes, you are under arrest for fraud, falsification of medical records, financial exploitation, and conspiracy to commit property seizure." Another agent turned to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, you are under arrest for aiding fraudulent financial transactions, identity falsification, and attempted unlawful transfer of protected property." My mother started crying. My father said nothing as his hands were cuffed. Ethan just stood there, motionless, staring at the fake belly on the floor, like it had personally betrayed him. Guests quietly moved aside as the agents escorted them out. No shouting, no resistance, just collapse. I stood in the center of my living room as the last of the glitter floated down from a pop balloon arch and landed at my feet. No music, no applause, just truth finally taking up space where lies used to live. The front door closed behind the last federal agent with a sound so final it echoed through the entryway. Then nothing, no music, no talking, no footsteps. Just silence swallowing a house that had hosted 100 fake celebrations. I stood where I was still holding the microphone. My fingers loosened and it dropped gently onto the carpet with a soft thud. No one reacted. There was no audience left to perform for. Glitter drifted down from a half-deflated balloon arch. A pink balloon rolled slowly across the marble floor and bumped into the discarded prosthetic belly. A decoration meeting a lie. The doctor unplugged her ultrasound machine, wiped the probe, and packed everything with quiet professionalism. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. Her job had been truth. She delivered it and moved on. Attorney Grant stepped beside me. "I'll handle the formal statements," he said. "You don't need to speak to anyone without me present." I nodded once.